And we're back, everyone. Today we're doing the most impactful cards in Ravnica Legions. I'm gonna go through them starting from common and going all the way up to mythic rare. And we start off with one of my favorite cards in the common slot from this expansion, which is Growth Spiral. I think this will be one of the cards that will be included in the kind of mana ramp archetype that I think we're gonna see. We have Growth Spiral, which is a really good ramp card. We also have the green enchantment that we're gonna see in uncommon. Possibly even splashing red in that deck to get access to Electro... what is it called? Electropod. We'll get to that card eventually, so... but I think this will be included in that kind of... because it's an instant, so it fits, perfectly into that deck. There's a lot of tricks you can do with this. Like, you can play this at your opponent's end step to... so that he's not sure if you're gonna have, 4 lands or not, and then, you catch him off guard and you get something in one turn earlier than you would have. You can play this and play a land and then use the mana for something that you get from that land immediately. So in that sense, it only costs 1 mana, kind of. I think it's a great card, and I think it's definitely gonna see play. And I think it will be kind of the cornerstone card in an upcoming archetype that we're gonna see in the kind of mana ramp kind of deck. Moving on to the next card. Impassioned Orator. I think this is probably the weakest card in the common slot, but I think it will be definitely be included in the decks that are now running Ajani's Welcome, I think it's called. I think this is just a superior option to that in that kind of deck. So it's kind of, white lifelink. I don't think it's going to be necessarily top tier, that deck. But I think it will definitely find its home there, and it's just a common, so I expect to see a lot of this in the arena. Moving on is to Justicar's Portal. This is another card which I think is kind of very meta-defined. I think this will create a new archetype of deck. I think this will create, remember the old days back with the Blink style kind of decks. I don't think we will ever reach something that potent, because back then we had much stronger cards available. That was back in Lorwyn, if I remember correctly. But I think with the new 5 mana rare that we're also gonna have a look at later, that blinks stuff in and out, I think this is very likely to become its own archetype. And I've seen we've seen these effects in the past in Magic, and they usually find a deck. We'll see if that happens. Next one, Open the Gates. Search your library for a basic card or gate card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. Yeah, this is 1 green mana, and it's a search effect. That has always been strong. And I mean, Flower Flourish is played. Sure, it has another side to it, but this... mana fixing for 1 mana and the possibility to also search for a gate. I mean, you might even, in some decks, I think, include 1 gate, because of that corner case where you want to search for two specific mana for this. It might actually be worth running 1 gate in your deck. Yeah, it's just very strong. Looking for something. Whenever a card is 1 mana, I think you need to look at a card twice and really try to evaluate, can I get something out of this? Can we get something out of it that's useful? 1 mana is 10 times better than costing 2 mana. Moving on. Saruli Caretaker. This is another card which is on the weaker side of the spectrum, but I think this will find a home, actually. We've had effect like this before. There was a drum, something, I don't remember exactly the name. It was an artifact. You could tap a creature for 1 mana, and it turned out to be very useful. Of course, that artifact could be used as you played it, which made it even better than this, but I think this is good enough to find a home. Not really sure what deck though that needs it. Yeah, Skewer the Critics. I think this card is going to be one of the most hated cards if it's not already in the coming expansion. Mono red is looking really strong in the coming expansion, and this just makes it worse. This just makes the red terror even worse. We're gonna see this card in so many, in so many kinds of decks. Anything that deals damage, anything that's not, Jeskai control can run this, and it's a lightning bolt for those decks. So yeah, might be the most played common from this set. Possibly, especially if you think about the fact that 60% of the cards run in Arena are mono red or something like that. Spear Spewer, yeah, here's another card that we'll probably learn to hate. Initially I was a bit on the fence about this card, damaging yourself for 1, and there are a lot of 1-drops which it competes with, which can deal 1 damage. But the thing is that your opponent eventually will have to answer this. Like the other threats on the board that you put down, you can usually stop if your opponent puts down some creatures that can put out some blockers and they stop your aggression. They can stop all your other 1-drops, but this they can't stop. Even if they put down creatures, there's no ending. They have to kill the Spear Spewer. And I think that makes it actually strong enough to probably be played over the current, maybe not the Gita Lava Runner, but over other 1 mana red choices. And also if it might even take the spot of a 2 mana card or 3 mana card to make the curve even lower. I think this is actually good. We'll see. Stony Strength. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, untap that creature. This effect in itself is kind of underwhelming, but again, being a 1 mana cards, I love 1 mana cards. If I would design a set, it would be like the 1 mana set, whichever, which a set which everything costs 1 mana or something. Because I just love, being able to play many spells at once and having many effects that, interact and stack with each other. And yeah, this is that kind of card. It's very niche in a way, because you probably only want to run this if you're having something that's, very beneficial to put +1/+1 counter on. Such as the green mana producing creature, which we're gonna see when we get to the rare cards. There is a rare creature which, when you put a +1/+1 counter on it, produces 3 mana, which is really strong, really strong. So yeah, I would be surprised if this is not played together with that card, because they seem to be kind of, when they created this card, they probably created it with that card in mind. Untap that creature, yeah, that's really good. So if you've already played this on your creature and you already have a +1/+1 counter on it, you can use this, gain even more mana, because you can untap, you can, tap out, get your 3 mana, untap it, tap again, and you have 6 mana in your pool. It's pretty good, but this costs 1, so it's 5 actually. Yeah, moving on. And yeah, we're into the uncommons now. Angelic Exaltation. 3 colorless, 1 white. I've been really back and forth on this card, if this is good, but I think it is. I think the mono... there's so many cards in the mono white list which just get so much better when you pump them up. Just, like Healer's Hawk. You have a lot of, small creatures out, and you, for some reason, can't attack because your opponent is summoning his defenses, and you get in for the damage with the Healer's Hawk, or you get in, a heal for 6 or 7 with a Healer's Hawk. That's going to be insanely good. You can, at any point, switch to going, air attack mode if you want to. Or you can put it, on your Aldante Vanguard if you need to get through, if you're staring down a Carnage Tyrant or something. Yeah, I think this will be played. Will be a 1 of? 2 of? I don't know, but I think it will be played in that kind of deck. I think it fits in there. Next card. Yeah, this is a split card here. And it's actually, there's only 2 split cards, I think, or 3 split cards that I've included in this list. Initially, when I looked at the split cards, I liked almost all of them. But the more I looked at them and the more I kind of thought about which kind of decks they fit into, I had trouble picturing which decks would actually want those effects together. That's the problem with the split cards. Do you want them those effects in the same deck? I don't know. But here's a card which I definitely think will see play, because I think there will be a new archetype, there will be a new 2-color combination which is going to be real strong, and that's Gruul, of course. Yeah, let's read the card first because it's sideways, so it might be hard to see. Collision, 1 colorless, then either a green or a red mana. Collision deals 6 damage to target creature with flying. So this is very situational. You probably want to run this card by itself. But the thing is that it doubles down as Colossus. A red and a green, an instant target creature gets +4/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Now, there's a couple of reasons why Colossus is actually great. One of the first is trample. There's already a buff sword +4/+4, but which doesn't give trample, and trample is really what you need. What Gruul is missing on most of their cards, what I think will be the issue for Gruul is that most of their cards are lacking trample, so they're easily jumped by something like an Orzhov deck. So you will want ways to get trample in Gruul, because else you're just gonna get jumped forever. All the threats are decently resilient to removal, since most thing dodges, the -2/-2 things and 2 damage stuff and that things like that. So that probably won't be the problem for them. The problem won't be, the low costing mass removal. The problem for them is going to be that they don't have trample, so they can get jumped forever. And this card solves that, and also solves the problem of them not having really a good way to deal with flyers, except if you can burn them, surely, but there's like 1 removal that's really good. They deal 4 damage, it's called Lava Coil, I think. And you probably don't want to run Lava Coils, really. It's not a card that you want to run. You probably rather run Collision Colossus in that deck rather than Lava Coils. That's what I think. So I think this will find its home in Gruul. Moving on. Yes, here's another one. It's another split card. Consecrate, Consume. Consecrate is an instant for 1 colorless and then 1 white or 1 black. Exile target card from a graveyard, draw a card. Now this is very situationally useful, and I think in 99% of the cases you will play this for the consume part. You could probably just print this as consume and it would be just as good. I don't think Consecrate really adds anything to this card. This card is consume for me. And consume is 2 colorless, 1 white, 1 black. Target player sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. You gain life equal to its power. Now this card is amazing because it solves a lot of problem. It solves the problem of Carnage Tyrant, which is what you'll jump to immediately. But it solves almost all cases of your opponent having something big out on the board that you need to deal with. It always deals with the correct target, almost no matter the board state. There are a few cases, sure, where it doesn't work, but in most cases this will get the target that you actually want to kill out of the way. And that's why I think it will be run. The problem is, it will probably be run. I don't know if there will be just an Orzhov deck, or if we're going to see something like an Esper deck. I think an Esper deck is more likely to be run than Orzhov, but we'll see. I don't really believe in going all in Afterlife. We'll see, but I think it's a bit fragile, and I think splashing blue is what that kind of deck needs. Anyways, moving on. Cry of the Cornerian. Yeah, this is just a strict uptrick to Golden Demise. And this will be played a lot, I think. It's an amazing kind of control card, or a card for any deck, even a mono black deck. If all your threats, either you don't care about them, they're like burglar rats or shitty creatures, or they're the type which can't be killed by this, then this is amazing removal. Kills Adanta Vanguard, kills all the afterlife creatures, I guess. This hosts that as well. Because if a creature would die this turn, exile it instead. So if I don't remember the wording on afterlife, but I'm pretty sure that you only get the creatures if the creature goes to the graveyard. I think it's dies. So I think that's how it's worded, not leaves the battlefield. And there's a lot of things now with reassembling skeletons and new black skeleton, whatever his name was. Yeah, there's a lot of things which this takes care of now. So I think this will be very impactful, and I think a lot of decks will have to think, does this pass the Cry of the Cornerian test? Does this die to the Cry of the Cornerian? That might be something to think about. Moving on. Essence Capture. This is another very niche spell. This will only be played in maybe, okay, I'm not gonna say one deck, maybe two, maybe Merfolk and mono blue unblockable creatures, whatever that, mono blue tempo, I guess it's called. Only those two decks, but it's just a strict upgrade to Essence Scatter in that deck, and I think those +1/+1 counters will be very useful for the mono blue deck, which otherwise died very easily to removal. Like just something which swept for 1 damage across the board just killed everything. If I ever got a Plague Mare down against it, I usually killed everything, and that's a real problem for that deck. They really need to have some way to buff up their creatures, and I think this is a great way to do that. Moving on, Fireblade Artist. Yep, there will be there's already a good black-red deck, and this will just make it even better. I think this creature is exactly what that deck needs. It's a haste creature, a 2/2 haste creature, which is good by itself. If this just had 1 black, 1 red, haste, 2/2, I think it would be decently good. But you also have the opportunities to sacrifice a creature. And if it could only sacrifice other creature except itself, then I would also say that's a really good ability. But it can even sacrifice itself to deal 2 damage. So yeah, you're getting that damage through pretty much no matter what with this guy in play. So, and that's what you want. That's exactly what the black-red strategy will be all about. Getting that damage through no matter what. And yeah, that's what you get. Frilled Mystic. Yeah, this is just an upgraded Mystic Snake, and anyone who has experienced Mystic Snake knows how good that card was. It was played in everywhere, everywhere we could fit it in. It's amazing to be able to. It's such a turnaround to be able to counter a important spell for your opponent and put your own creature down. So you reverse the game kind of. Before you played this, they probably had like maybe a 2/2 down or a 1/1 down or something from the earlier turns down, which is slowly beating you down. But then you counter this and the tables are reversed. You can't attack anymore. They need to start blocking your Frilled Mystic, else you're gonna race them down. So yeah, very good card. We'll see play, I think. Gates Ablaze. Yeah, I've been looking into creating a Gates deck, and I think that the Gates deck will always be. It's kind of in the same position as Mill. It can't ever be a a top tier strategy just by its own nature, since it's very easy to counter the Gates deck. it can't ever be top tier, but it can be good. It can win matches and can, you know, really crush some decks which doesn't punish it. It will always lose against mono red, I think. There's no way you can ever win if they are on the play and you're playing tapped land into tapped land into tapped land. Even if you clear their board, they're gonna have enough burn to just burn you out. There's no, even though you can gain 3 life, it's so unlikely to happen that I think red decks versus the Gates deck will have something like 80 or 90% win rate. So it will never be, and it's the same with the kind of with the mill deck, because anyone can just put in 1 card in their deck, any card which, you know, loops whenever it's put into the graveyard, it's shuffled back into your library. Just put one of those cards in and you can never be milled. So that strategy will also never be top tier, but it will always be, I think, on the fringe. There will be a small percentage of people playing it, and yeah, whenever you come up against that deck, you're probably not gonna have, you know, the answer to it, and you're gonna die. It's the same with the Gates deck. You're gonna die to Gates decks from time to time if you're not playing mono red. That's gonna happen. Moving on. High Alert. Each combat... okay, it's an enchantment. It's 1 colorless, 1 white, 1 blue. Each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. Creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender. I actually think that this might be, the more that I've looked at the cards which you can play together with this, I think this might, there's 2 possibilities for this. Either, as most people think, the most obvious way is to play it in an, I think it's Artemis or something, it's a dragon which makes all your defender creatures attack. It pretty much gives the same effect, except you also draw a card whenever they come into play. And that's good. The problem is they're not... there are actually a few good defender cards now. We'll have a look at them later, because they're included here. But I think this might be a one-of in a white deck splashing blue. And I'm thinking there's a lot of small white creatures with unreasonably high amount of toughness. It's like 3 toughness and 4 toughness for 2 mana. And if you can put this down with those creatures, which are already good, by themselves, even if you don't draw into this, like Tocatli and the Snubhorn Sentry, and there's another which removes counters, which is a 1/4. Add this to that, and your team is, they're buff and big and they can kill anything. So I think that archetype could, just work. It's fine, even if you don't draw into High Alert. The creatures are good enough by themselves, and if you draw into it, it just buffs your entire team. It's like all your creatures. It's like all your creatures get +2/+2 kind of, but except you don't get toughness. It's like +2/+0 or something. I don't know. So this might be my experimental ideas and thoughts, but I think this might see play, quite likely. Moving on. Ooh, here. This might actually be my favorite card in this set. I know it's weird. Let's read it first, because it doesn't look like the kind of card which would be anyone's favorite, really. Incubation, a sorcery. 1 green or 1 blue. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Reveal a creature card or a land card from among them and put that card into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Then you have Incongruity. 1 colorless, 1 green, 1 blue. It's an instant. Exile target creature. That creature's controller creates a 3/3 green frog lizard creature token. Now, the second part of this, the incongruity part, is not that good. I mean, I remember there was a blue card which pretty much did the same thing. It was called Pongify, I think. And that card was only, occasionally run. So it's not a great effect for 3. But the versatility in this card is amazing, because it does everything. The more I think about this card, the more I want it in any deck which can have it, basically. Because when you're looking for something, you're either looking for a creature, or you're looking for a land. Most likely, in 80% of the cases when you're looking for something, you're looking for a land, actually, in Magic the Gathering. It's a bit weird, but that's how it's work. Then about, let's say, maybe 10% of the time, of the remaining time, you're looking for a creature. And then the remaining 10, you're looking for removal. And this got you covered in all cases. If you're looking for a land, you can get a land. If you're looking for a creature, you can get a creature, and you have a removal. Granted, removal isn't the best, but when you're looking for removal, it's because there's a high, high threat target, like there's a Niv Mizzet, or there's like something humongously big on the board, like this new ooze thing, or something that needs to be answered immediately, or else you die. So you don't care if they get a 3/3, frog token from it. That's like a 3/3 frog token has nothing on Niv Mizzet, So I think, and also it's 5 cards. I think they're pushing it a little bit here, and I think that's good. I really like that. 5 cards is much better than 4 cards, of course. And in blue, you can play this on a blue land also. So this, the mana is versatile. You can get anything. Yeah, I just think this is an amazing card. And again, any card that costs 1 mana, if it does something useful, it's probably gonna be good enough to be played in some deck. Yeah, that's my that's my opinion at least. Moving on. Light up the stage. This was the first card spoiled, if I remember correctly. And yeah, this card is good. This card, I thought about this a lot. I think this might even see play in Legacy. It's 1 red, it's 1 red, basically draw 2. I don't know the ruling of this, because I thought about until the next turn you may play those cards, but I think you can't, even though it says that I can play the card, and if the top card is a land, I'm guessing I can't override the rule which says I can only play 1 land card every turn. So I'm not a rule nerd, so I don't know exactly the rulings, but if it could do that also, then it's definitely a Legacy card. Otherwise it's maybe good enough for Legacy, because digging 2 into your deck for 1 mana, it's just 1 mana, essentially 1 mana, draw 2 cards. Like, it's not that far off a brainstorm. You only need that spectacle thing to, something that enables it. And I think most formats, has those kind of decks, where this is already enabled, where this is already very easy to do. So yeah, I think it's a good card. Here's a rare pick, Ministrant of Obligation. 2 colors, 1 white. This is a very speculative, because I was looking through the Orzhov cards and I was thinking, okay, which cards could be played in an Orzhov deck which is going for Afterlife? And there's not that many cards which are actually that good. I guess the idea of Orzhov is that you're gonna put a lot of shit down and you're not gonna care too much if they die because they have good afterlife. And this is one of the few creatures which are actually better with their afterlife than their their initial body. So this fits great into the deck, but there's not that many cards. That's why I'm thinking maybe Orzhov is not a thing. Maybe it's Esper. Because you're not gonna get enough cards out of blue-black. Otherwise, you can do something like mono-black just splashing white for some few nice effects, but you probably won't splash white for this. Probably just for the wrath effect or something. But it's more likely to be Esper. But if there is a world where this is good and where you're gonna play an Orzhov deck, I think this will be, just by the fact that there's no better afterlife creatures. This is like one, maybe 2 decently good afterlife creatures. I think this is one of them. So that's why it's on this list. Mortify. Yep. 1 colorless, 1 white, 1 black. Destroy target creature enchantment. Yeah, if white ever needed a reason to... If black ever needed a reason to splash white, I should say, then this is the reason. Black has always struggled with enchantments, and there's a lot of good enchantments now. I actually like this. This is probably maybe my favorite part about the new sets, or this expansion overall, is the increased emphasis on enchantments, because I really think that creatures get a bit boring after a while. You want to diversify, to have a few good equipments, a few good enchantments, and there's like a nice interplay between all those parts, and you need different threats to combat different things, and every match feels a bit different. If everything is just creatures, to me it feels a bit Hearthstone to be honest, and I don't like that. So I'm glad that there's good enchantments, and I'm actually also glad that there's good ways to remove enchantments, and this is a good way to do that. And it's something that black really needed. And I really think that we are going to see not necessarily Ores of decks, as I said earlier, but more like black decks which splash white for some nice cards. There are a few, Ores of cards which are nice to splash into your mono black mix. Yep, moving on. Ores of Enforcer. Yep, here's the other afterlife creature that I actually think it's good enough. Orsov's plan is probably to build up into, go late. You don't want to go aggro Orsov, I don't think. I think that's doomed to fail in every way. So I think what you want to do is just, clog up the board with creatures which are better when they die, or almost equally as good when they die or something. And then have a, wrath over your creatures or something, gain a lot of life, and have an army of 1/1 flyers. That's going to be the Orsov strategy, and yeah, this fits perfectly into that. You can put this down and your opponent is going to think twice about attacking into you. It's going to be amazing against Gruul, because you can kill all their big creatures with this, and then jump block another time with your Afterlife token. It's not going to be amazing against mono red, but you're not going to be unhappy that you drew it. You're going to be able to block twice against them, and that's probably good enough. It survives Chain Whirler. It can't block Chain Whirler, or at least can't kill the Chain Whirler. So. But it can kill all the other creatures. Yeah, I think it's a solid, good card. Initially I wasn't too impressed about it, and I even thought, like, why is this even an uncommon? Shouldn't this be uncommon? But I think this is actually good. Actually a good card. Patera Mandor. Yep. I think everyone who has ever seen this has thought, well, this is going to cost 1 blue to adapt, because you're gonna get those cards in your graveyard at some point. And yeah, that's true. It's gonna be a good Drake. The only problem for this Drake is that there's already, it's already competing with very good Drakes. So, but I think by the virtue of being 1 blue, like, you can tap out in a very good way with this, and that's why I think it's gonna win out over. I think it's gonna push out the Drake who doesn't draw any cards. Maybe it's not gonna take Niv Misset's role, because that's pretty much set in stone. This is probably always gonna be 2 of those, and the Drake that draws a card I think is really, really good because it replaces itself. The 3-mana Drake is the one which I'm a bit, I don't know, like, if it gets removed, it's just, a creature. It's pretty average, I think. But costing 1 mana and then having the adapt for 1 blue, yeah, that's really good. It's really good. Probably the Drake deck will evolve a little bit, I think. I think it will incorporate black and go for a few, maybe Bolasses even, over the other, I don't know. But you want that. That's a thing with the deck. The thing is, you want those Drakes because they get buffed for each instant sorcery, and you can sometimes buff them up to 10 power or 12 tough, 10 not 12 toughness, 13 power or something to kill your opponent with it, which you can't do with the Patera Mandor. But at the same time, it's so cheap to I want to say cheap is what I want to say. So cheap to buff. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just like this card more than I should. I think that it's gonna have a place in a Drake deck, which it might not have, because it lacks the ability to go bonkers when you have enough instant and sorceries in your graveyard. It lacks the one turn kill kind of potential that the other Drakes have. So, but I think it will be played. That's what I think. Moving on. Resolute Watch. 1 white. It's a Hound Defender. Weird that this has Defender, maybe. It's Hound. It's Watch. It's a Watchdog, I guess. 1 colorless. Sacrifice Resolute Watchdog. Target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. Now this will only be played in one deck ever. And that's the, what's it called? Arcanist. The dragon, which removes Defender and makes things able to attack. Because you can defend your Arcanist or whatever his name is. I forget. Anyways, if that deck has a chance, then this is the card which gives it that chance, I think. I still think you need more cards like this. Like if you could, and it's also, indestructible is not as good as, there's a lot of exiling effects now. So it's not as good as maybe was earlier, and there's a lot of decks which you can't protect your creatures with this with, so yeah. But I still think with this card that we're at least gonna see it in Arena. Is it going to be top tier? Probably not, but it's going to be a new type of deck which we're facing down. I think that's exciting, at least to see something new. Now the Arena is getting a bit same kind of decks that's repeating over and over. And I think this is a good idea from them to actually push this kind of archetype, Wizards of the Coast, that they're pushing something, new and exciting, and I really like that, so that's why it's on there, on the list. Rhythm of the Wild. Yep. This is not my favorite card, because it's not, doesn't really fit into the type of deck which I usually want to play, but this is probably the best uncommon. Probably the best uncommon in Ravnica Allegiance. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Non-token creatures you control have Riot. It's too bad that it's non-token, I think. But else it would probably be too good. It would be too good, I could say. Yeah, this is exactly what Gruul needs. You want Riot, and there's actually a lot of creatures in Gruul. First I thought, well, isn't this redundant? Everything already has Riot in Gruul, right? But then I started looking through the cards, and the things, there are things which become, like, we'll see those later. There are cards which become like 10 times better when you give them Riot, and don't have Riot to begin with in Gruul. So not only will this probably be splashed in any deck that can afford splashing it, because it's that good. Anything that has creatures that can splash this will run this, I think. I mean, it's never going to be bad, even if you just run a one of this, getting this out will, in many cases, just, win you the game. Like, that's how strong it seems to me, at least. Having haste on a creature is very, very strong. It's one of the strongest keywords. I think if we were to rank the keywords, I guess hexproof would be stronger than indestructible. I guess it would be something like hexproof, then indestructible, then haste, maybe. So it's one of the strongest keywords you can get access to, and getting that on any creature is just bonkers. And just as an added, benefit, creatures you control can't be countered. Yep, amazing. Moving on. Sundar Shaman. Yep, here's one of the cards that I talked about. I remember back in Ravnica, the first time Ravnica came out. Actually, there was a flyer, 2/3 flyer, if I remember correctly. 1 colorless, 1 blue, 1 green. It had the same effect. Whenever it dealt combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact or enchantment that player controls. And that creature went on to, you know, see play in Legacy. It was an amazing, amazing creature. And I thought, well, this is so much worse since this doesn't have flying, so it's never gonna be unblocked. But the thing is, with Riot, you might not even see this coming, and there's so many good enchantments to kill with this. Couple this with Riot, and this is dangerous. You're gonna be... Yeah, if you can't hold up mana for 1 turn, this is just gonna ruin your enchantments. And if you're, you know, especially if you're doing things like prison kind of stuff, where you're imprisoning creatures, this guy is just gonna release all the creatures that you thought you catched, you know. I think it's too bad that they gave him can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. I think it should have been Menace, so that you actually, you know, had another way to enable his deals combat damage to a player. But yeah, it is what it is. I think this is because of the previous card here, Rhythm of the Wild. I think that Sundar Shaman will be played in Gruul. I think it's good enough. It's a good body. It's 5/5. Gruul can, without problem, you know, manage the mana. It's amazing with Riot. So, yep. Moving on. Wall of Lost Thoughts. Yes, I think this card deserves to be on this list just because I think it will make the mill deck, which was already almost good enough, to being good enough. And I think in best of 3s you're gonna see sideboard cards, I think, against mill after this expansion. I think you will have to in best of 3s. In best of 1s, I'm not sure. It depends on how many people that actually go for the mill plan, you know, on MTG Arena. But if that percentage is low, then probably people are just gonna, you know, okay, I just forfeit this matchup because I don't have any cards which interacts with his mill plan or something. If your deck is not fast enough. I think red decks will always be fast enough to kill the mill deck before they mill you. But if you're some kind of slower deck or some kind of rampy deck, I think you will just lose to this strategy every time. Moving on. Wilderness Reclamation. Yeah, everyone's talked about this card. And it's still good. It's gonna be played, and it's gonna, you know, probably birth a new kind of archetype, or kind of merge into the Jeskai control deck, which I think really wants this card. Putting down this, then untapping and going into a Settle the Wreckage, or you can do so much with this. It might be to the point where control decks become too dangerous to deal with, but we do have the tools to deal with cards like this. Like, there are spell pierces and negates and, you know, duresses and stuff to get this out of their hand or counter it. But I think this is it's a dangerous card. This might make Magic boring. This might become so dominant that people are like, oh, this expansion is already figured out. It's 100% control. The only argument against that is that we have the tools to deal with this, and mono red is looking real good. So maybe Jeskai won't even, you know, stand a chance. Maybe there's gonna be like 90% mono red decks or something on the arena. I don't know. We'll see. Surah Taha Goblin. Probably the most boring card to have on, on this list. But it's a good card. It's a 2/2 haster. And sometimes you're gonna play it as a 3/3. Yeah. It's super boring, but it's good. Unfortunately, it's good. I wish this card wasn't good. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah. Black-red. I foresee seeing a very aggressive and strong black-red deck. There were already, you know, very good cards in red and very good cards in black, so why not put those colors together, you know? Now we have the lands for it. We have amazingly good removal, some insanely good creatures for that deck. Yeah. if it's not gonna be mono red, it's probably gonna be black red decks. Destroy target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Yep, that planeswalker is very important. I think you could have printed this without artifact and it would have been almost, just as good. It's good. Moving on. Electro Dominance. Yeah, everybody has already talked about everything you can do with this. You can put in planeswalkers, you can put in the previous green enchantment with this, you can... anything. Anything with this is good. It's removal that cheats something into play. And it will see play in Modern, and it will see play in Legacy, just because of the fact that it can play cards without mana cost. So, yep. Here's another boring card. Gruul have a lot of boring cards, which are good, unfortunately. Gruul Spellbreaker, either a haster, I think it's... most of these Riots cards, I think 90% are gonna be haste. It's very rare that you're gonna put a +1 counter on it. In a very few, specific matchups, maybe. I don't know. Maybe against like mono green or something, which has a lot of big creatures. You need a little bit, need to buff them up a bit. But in most cases, this is just gonna go face with haste. You and Gruul, it's Riot Trample 3/3. As long as it's your turn, you and Gruul Spellbreaker have hexproof. And that's of course a way to, protect against settled wreckage. So they need to play 2 cards to deal with Gruul Spellbreaker. First they need to play something on their turn, which is good because then they're tapping out on their turn, and then they need to go for a settled wreckage. So yeah, really good creature, but boring. Moving on. Gutterbones. Another creature for 1 black. If this was 2 mana, I probably wouldn't hardly even look at this, but for 1 mana, everything that's 1 mana is worth considering. And initially I thought this was worse than Reassembling Skeleton. Now I'm thinking it's actually better. The thing is, you get that it's better in the type of deck, which I didn't think about. If you're going for something more aggressive, and you're just thinking of the second clause, which is return Gutterbones from your graveyard to your hand, which can only activate if your opponent lost life. If you think this more as a backup plan, if your main plan doesn't work and you suddenly need to return all your Gutterbones because you need, to finish your opponent off, it's more there as an insurance, and it's, very good early creature. So you put this down and think of it more in that way. I initially, thought of it as a very grindy creature, which you just recur, and I don't think that's necessarily where this creature fits best. I think it's more an aggressive plan you're going with, something like, the black-red plan, and fits perfectly in there. Hero of Precinct 1. Here's a card which I still... even though I've seen these effects, they're all over Legacy. There's even one which was banned, I think, which did the same thing. Creates a token when you play something. But the thing is that it's multicolored. And the more I look through the multicolored spells, there's not too much you want to have. Like, you don't want to create a worse deck just to have Hero of Precinct 1 in it, I don't think. You probably want to include this in your already good multicolor deck, but there's not enough. I haven't found any list which has white in it, which has enough, multicolored spells. So even though this is a great card, I'm thinking maybe this won't even be played in a top tier list, simply because there's no deck which this fits in. It doesn't fit with the multicolored cards that we have. Most of the good multicolored cards are black anyway, so... yep, moving on. Incubation Druid. Here's a card which has to be good, but it's kind of... it's always this way with these kind of combo creatures. You always think that they're better than they are, but it always turns out in Magic that drawing that enabler for the Incubation Druid is going to, be proven harder than you think. Like, there's going to be turns where you draw 3 Incubation Druid and no way in the entire match to enable it, and it's just gonna be, your Elfheim Druid, which gives you 1 mana. The redeeming factor, I guess, is the Adapt 3 on this. But then again, do you ever want to go aggressive with this card? Yeah, I don't know. I think it will see play. I think it's amazing because it has the opportunity to produce 3 mana. The only thing that's stands in the way of this card is that the things that put +1/+1 counters on things, most of them are not too good. That's the problem. But yeah, it will see play. Maybe in other formats. Moving on. Kaya's Wrath. Destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you control that were destroyed this way. 2 white, 2 black. Yeah, I think every control player, I guess, loves Wrath effects. Just get rid of all the shit that has accumulated on the board. It's too bad it doesn't take care of, Adanta Vanguard, but except for that, it clears it up pretty nicely, I think. Especially for an Orzhov deck which might run Afterlife. Although, as I said, there's not too many Afterlife creatures that look too interesting to run, actually. So we'll see. It might be that it just kills other better, I would say, creatures that you've expended, like, I don't know, Chupacabras and Burglar Rats or whatever black creatures you have lying around there whenever you need to board wipe. But it's a great card. It will see play, and it might even spawn in its own archetype. Lumbering Battlement. Yeah, this is another card which I was a bit skeptical to when I read it, but I think there are enough good comes into play effects that this has a home, and you can actually do some pretty nice stuff with this, with, as I said previously, I always take up the same creatures because they are creatures that I like. Burglar Rat and Chupacabras, but there's other, you can potentially play Bolas, three colors, so it's might not be the best in that deck, but there's what more is there? I can't come up with any on the top of my head, but there's a lot of comes into play effects. I guess I should read the card, maybe. 4 colorless, 1 white. It's a 4/5. Vigilance. When Lumbering Battlement enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-token creatures you control until it leaves the battlefield. Lumbering Battlement gets +2/+2 for each card exiled with it. I think the +2/+2 doesn't matter too much on this card. It's a nice bonus, but the thing is, recurring your comes into play triggers. If you build your deck around it, will be really, really good. And that's why I think this will spawn another comes into play archetype. I think when I've gone through the cards, when I thought about this a little bit longer and harder, I think this is good enough. This will see play. Plaza of Harmony. Yep. I have a gate deck, so this, while not being exactly what I wanted this to be a gate, for instance. It's not a gate, don't know why. I think this will be, of course, be played in all the gate decks, and gains your life. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be enough life, because you're still going to be burnt out by all the red decks in the world. Because you're maybe going to draw 1 of this if you're lucky against the mono red. Yeah, probably won't be good enough. But it enables the Gates deck, and the Gates deck is something which I think there's very little of in MTGO, and we'll see more of it. And I think that's fun. I like the Gates deck. Moving on. Priest of Forgotten Gods. 1 colorless, 1 black. sacrifice 2 other creatures. Any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. You add 2 black and draw a card. Yeah, the more I thought about this card, there's just so many good interactions with this card. There's a lot of 1-drops which you can sacrifice, mostly in white. There's like Haunted Witness or whatever it's called. It's a creature for 1 mana. But there's a lot of, you know, stuff which you don't mind sacrificing too much. And also I'm thinking, maybe it's gimmicky, but I'm so greedy. I want to, you know, create a kind of, you know, Nicol Bolas greedy deck with this and Burglar Rats or something, and then something which takes over your opponent's creatures, so they can do an insanely strong swing where you take over your opponent's creature, you know, attack in with that, then sacrifice that creature to Priest of Forgotten Gods, and force him to even sacrifice his. If it, let's say he has 2 creatures out, you take over 1, sacrifice that, makes him sacrifice his last creature, you get a board clear, essentially, out of this and a takeover something card. It's a sack outlet. It's an insanely good sack outlet because you also gain, you know, 2 black mana, draw a card, yeah. Super fun card. If I were to rank which card is the most fun card in this expansion, I would say Priest of Forgotten Gods is the most fun card to play with. Theater of Horrors. 1 colorless, 1 black, 1 red. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. During your turn, if an opponent lost life this turn, you may play cards exiled with Theater of Horrors. Then you can pay 3 colorless, 1 red. Theater of Horrors deals 1 damage to target opponent or planeswalker. Yeah, the last clause just enables itself. I don't remember when I first read this card, but I think I didn't think about the fact that it keeps accumulating cards even if you don't necessarily play it. Like, even if you don't play the cards, you don't need to play it out immediately. And that makes the card stronger than I first thought. The only reason why I'm a bit on the fence on this card is that there's the Experimental Frenzy, which in most cases I think is better than this, and I don't think you want to run 2 of this effect because you don't want to draw into multiples, because then you don't have enough burn in that kind of deck. But this might even, you know, get sidestepped into even some controller type deck where, you know, you have ways to damage your opponent. I don't know, Vicious Rumors or anything that could fit into a control shell and enable Theater of Horrors. Yeah. Moving on. Tithe Taker. This is another boring creature in a way. You know, 1 colorless, 1 white. During your turn, spells your opponent's cast cost 1 more to cast, and abilities your opponent's activate cost 1 more to activate unless they're mana abilities. Yeah, so this basically slows your opponent down 1 turn, essentially. Which is what you want in white. You don't want them to have their settle the wreckages or whatever board clear they have access to. You want it to take 1 turn later. And also, whenever they get that off, you have the Afterlife. A solid white creature, but I think it's super boring, but it fits perfectly into the white archetype. So, yeah, I guess I'm fine with it. Moving on. Yeah, we're into Mythic now. Angel of Grace. Actually, the Mythic spot, I was a bit overexcited. I think that easily happens to people when they read the Mythic cards. And that's probably indicative of them doing a great job with Mythic cards, actually. You're initially excited, and then the more you think about the cards, you're like, is this actually good? This is one of those cards, is this actually good? It barely made it to the list, and I guess I should read it first. 3 colorless, 2 white. Flash, flying. 5/4. When Angel of Grace enters the battlefield, until end of turn, damage that would reduce your life to less than 1, reduce it to 1 instead. And then you can pay 4 colorless and 2 white. Exile Angel of Grace from your graveyard. Your life total becomes 10. Now, the when Angels of Grace enters the battlefield until end of turn clause, I think the only time... The problem with this card is, if you're playing against a mono-red deck, which is the deck which is most likely to burn you down the fastest, where you might want this card, and which mono red is also probably going to be a large part of the meta. First of all, it's slow. It's 5 mana. So when you get this out, it's barely in time, because the red deck will be insanely fast. Next, it doesn't do too well against burn. It works if they only have 1 burn left in their hand. Otherwise, they could just answer. Like, they play their burn, and you answer with Angel of Grace to save yourself from that burn, but then you just continue up. Okay, so then I answer your Angel of Grace with another burn. You're dead. So it only works against creatures attacking, that kind of strategy, like Gruul. I guess it's amazing against Gruul. So we'll see how big part of the meta Gruul becomes. But I actually like the second part better, as I said earlier. Exile Angel of Grace from a graveyard, life total becomes 10. I think that if you can somehow stave off the mono red aggression and get this into your graveyard instead, maybe discard this with something, and then set your life total 10, that will be more useful against, because else the next turn they're just gonna burn you anyway. If they ever draw into a burn, you're dead anyway. So you need this angel to die, and they're not gonna kill it. Like, they don't want you to have it in your graveyard, because it's most likely better in your graveyard. So yeah, that's why I'm a bit skeptical against this, and I think this fits better with something that wants to discard. It's like, jumpstart cards, and Jeskai has the ability to discard this. So yeah. That's where I stand on the issue. Dovin Grand Arbite, another card which barely made it to the mythic list, and basically because the mythic list was a bit short, I thought. And I looked at the Planeswalkers again, and I was like, oh, which Planeswalker do I like the best? I think they're all kind of shit. But this actually fits into a deck that I want to build, and it's because the create a 1/1 colorless Thopter token creature with flying, you gain 1 life. Worst case, if you're an aggressive deck and you keep attacking, your opponent, if they go for Dovin, that's probably fine. It's probably gonna get 1 or 2 Thopters out, and otherwise it's gonna get, you always have the ability. It's kind of flexible in a way. If things go bad, you're just gonna produce 1/1 colorless tokens until you run out of loyalty on this guy. But if things go good, and if you're winning, you can more strongly cement your win, I guess, by using the +1 on this. So the +1, I think, is very situational, but when you get that off, you can really win the game. I think it's a game winner, since it's so fast. If you play on curve and play a creature for 1, a creature for 2, or maybe 2 creature for 1, I guess. It's the only way to do it. And you use the +1 ability, then you can get to 7 loyalty immediately. Because you get 3 counters, from 1 from each creature and 1 from the plus. So you immediately get to 7, and then you just go ultimate immediately. You don't. I don't think you care too much about poor Dovin's life. You're just gonna go whenever you have the ulti available. You're just gonna go ulti without thinking. You're not gonna save up to have him alive or something. Like he's like a mini Bitter Blossom, I guess. A worse Bitter Blossom. That's how I look at the card, and that's why I think it's, of the Planeswalkers, it's the best, and that's why it deserves a spot, I think, on this list. Hydroid Crisis, yeah, this is another card which will fit into the ramp archetype that I talked about, and this is probably one of the cards which will enable that archetype. And it's not because that it's a decent creature, it's because it's uncounterable card draw, and that's good always. And you get a decent body out of it, so I guess I should read the card. I forget that all the time. X, 1 green, 1 blue. When you cast a spell, you gain half X life, you draw half X card, round down each time. Flying Trample. Hydroid Crisis enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. So you don't get half X1 counters on your creature. It's actually a decently sized creature. If you play this for 6, you get a 4/4 flying trample, which is decent, but you also draw 2 cards and gain 2 life, which is, I mean, that's only decently good, but you're gonna have to, when you judge this card, you're gonna have to think, okay, but what happens when I get access to insane mana, which will happen with you know, all the growth spirals and mana ramp that you have access to. You're gonna get insane mana with this, probably a Source Gateway, and you know, play this for, I don't know, 24 mana or something. Like, you're gonna win the game almost when you play this. So worst case, you know, if you don't get too much ramp off, it's a decent creature with a decent ability, and best case you win the game. So that's why this is amazing, and it's uncounterable. Use your Azor's Gateway, play this, uncounterably gain, you know, I don't know, 12 life, draw 12 cards, and have, you know, a 20/20 flying trample on the board. So yeah, that's pretty much all you need in that deck, I think. Mesmerizing Benthic. Yep, this is a hexproofer, and probably one of the best hexproof. I guess Carnage Tyrant will still be the best hexproofer. This is the second best hexproofer, and it's really good. And the reason I say it's really good is because it doesn't have trample as Carnage Tyrant, but you can put anything on this, any effect that you can add to this, like if you add flying to this or put an enchantment, which you probably want to run anyway if you're running hexproofers, you know, the +1/+1 flying lifelink is pretty good on this card. Also it dodges what's it called, the Eldest Reborn. I guess it doesn't dodge the new one, the 2 colorless, 1 white, 1 black, destroy the one with highest power, which I think will be played a lot, so it doesn't dodge that, but dodges the typical removal that's currently run against hexproof. And I mean, the tokens in themselves are good against aggressive strategies, so yeah. This is the which one is the best? Hydroid Crazes or Mesmerizing Benthic? I don't know. I guess I'm gonna be very sad in 2 months when I look back at this video, and one of them is gonna be like 99% or like 90%, 99% of the meta, and one's gonna be like 1%. And I'm gonna be sad that I even compared them, but I think going from the knowledge I have right now, I think they're on about equal footing. They're really good. Ravager Worm. 3 colors, 1 red, 2 green. It's a 4/5 riot, so you can put it into play as a 5/6 or a 4/5 haster. When it comes into play, you choose 1, fight target creature you don't control, or destroy target land with an activated ability that is an mana ability. Yeah, it doesn't fit in the... I guess the reason they didn't do destroy target land, because they could just have done that, is because I don't think they wanted to give more tools than... they didn't want to give too many tools into the land destruction deck. That's why they printed this at this, I think. It still does a good job, because it still removes all the lands which you actually care about, because those are the lands which have activated abilities. But the important part, of course, is the fight target creature you don't control, and can kill anything that's a threat currently, like the Niv Mizzets and all the Drakes and all the, you know, big... all the Golgari creatures, essentially. It kills anything. Kills anything when it comes into play. It's probably just an upgrade. We had a 4/4 creature which kicker 3, it fights something. But I think this is better. It has riot, it fights something, it probably fits pretty well into Gruul. You're probably gonna get this, you know, into play uncounterable, which is pretty big deal, because it has you know, haste on a big body and it kills something. So yeah, I think it... How many though? I don't know, 1, 2, 3 in that deck. I don't think you want to run... I think the Gruul deck will be mostly running low low costing cards, so I think this will be maybe one or two. Spawn of Mayhem, 2 colorless, 2 black, but that cost I think will rarely be played. I think it's going to be played for Spectacle, 1 colorless, 2 black. Flying Trample, at the beginning of your upkeep, Spawn of Mayhem deals 1 damage to each player, then if you have 10 or less life, put a +1/+1 counter on Spawn of Mayhem. Now the important part about that second clause I think is deals damage, 1 damage to each player. I think when you have 10 or less life, that's very situational. It's rarely gonna be a factor, I think. The more important part is you're raising your opponents down. A 4/4 flying trample, which is also really nice to have extra insurance that you get the damage in. It's really nice to get a 4/4 flying trample for 3, it goes without saying. But also dealing 1 damage, essentially making this, for me it feels like kind of a 5/4 flying trample for 3 with an upside. So yeah, this is amazing, amazingly good. I was even thinking, like, is this good enough for Legacy? I don't think it is. I don't think it's good enough for Legacy. If it would have costed 2 black as a Spectacle, then yes, it would probably be good enough to be played in Legacy in an aggressive deck. But for 3, no, still a bit too high. Even though it's a really good creature, it's good, but it's not broken good. That's what I'm trying to say here. Next card. We've done them all. We're back to Growth Spiral. There was actually one more card which I probably forgot to download here, which I wanted to talk about, and that's a enchantment which we don't have on the screen here. It's a Gruul enchantment for 1 green and 1 red, and it says whenever a opponent plays a non-creature spell, it deals 1 damage, and then you can sacrifice for 1 colorless to destroy a artifact or enchantment. And the more I thought about that enchantment, I think because there are so many good enchantments that you want to remove, and because the upside, because it basically hoses all the Jeskai decks and any control deck, you can't play any type of control game versus that card. I think it's so good that it's going to be main decked, maybe in Gruul or any deck that can afford it. I think it's that good. So it's unfortunate that I didn't download it, but I think it really deserves a mention here. So yeah, this was a bit of a long video, but yeah, I'm glad you looked all the way through to the end here. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.